This pyramid you have already seen in the previous presentations summarizes the approach at the base of the Visus methodology, that is the triage for planning. When you have a multitude of schools, there's a need, as I told you before, to have first a desk analysis and the data mining of all your schools. So you need to know the portfolio of schools you have, and you need to have some basic information of these schools. So desk analysis of the available documentation and the collection of data through questionnaires, forms, checklists in correspondence of each schools. This approach provides you some information so concerning, for example, a preliminary classification of the schools, an overall assessment of all the situation in the territory you are analyzing, and you can also have, after data mining, a class or index of risk for evaluation based on statistical assessment. After a rapid assessment of each school, after a rapid visual inspection of each school, you can you can have a better identification of the problems of each learning facility. So you can have the information about the situation in each school. Visus methodology aims to apply a rapid visual inspection of each school and of each learning facilities applied by local trained surveyors, so usually students of the last year of university, engineering or architectural faculties, or local technicians. And they make a pragmatic rapid assessment of the safety situation of the schools, and the elements they acquire during the survey provide the elements for decision-making support concerning the identification and the characterization of the safety weaknesses in the school facilities, the identification of the intervention needs, the estimation of the required budget allocation in order to improve the safety, and all this information are treated together in order to define decision support for multi-criteria definition of intervention strategies. All this obviously considering a multi-hazard perspective. On a subset of buildings identified after the triage, you can have a detailed data acquisition and a quantitative analysis of each learning facilities. So you can have a detailed investigation done by professionals, engineers or architects, and the design of the interventions. The outcome consists in in-depth specific assessment in the safety design of the intervention and in the detailed cost quantification of these interventions. After this detailed investigation, it is possible to proceed with the realization of the interventions. However, this detailed investigation is very costly and cannot be directly applied on all the portfolio of the schools in a country. So it is necessary to have, before the detailed investigation, to identify the schools that require first these safety upgrading interventions. So the prioritization is one of the keywords of the Visus methodology. It's important to identify the schools that require first the treatments in order to have a cost-effective resources allocation. And to provide define a detailed action plan. The triage approach presented for the Visus methodology was derived from the approach adopted by the disaster emergency management in the medical sector, when in case of a large number of patients require treatment, there is a first triage, a first assessment of the situation by a nurse, and then after this triage there is the identification of the required treatment for that patient, and then it is possible to proceed with the detailed inspection and the by a specialist and the definition of the required intervention. In parallel, Visus applies a similar approach on buildings. There is a surveyor that surveys the building, that understands the situation of the buildings, reports its situation, and then the buildings requiring first intervention, so the prioritized buildings go first to the specialist engineers for the definition of the intervention. So, in the Visus methodology, the question was how to assess a large number of learning facilities for characterizing the situation and defining the priorities of intervention. We considered again the parallel situation between disaster medicine and Visus approach, and we have this analogy that guides us during the entire path. So, in the disaster medicine, we have a large number of patients, and in the Visus methodology, we have a large number of schools, and we need to decide who first, why, what are the treatment that the priority schools need, and how many are the schools that need priority intervention. We need, therefore, to understand the situation, to characterize the situation through a rapid assessment, because this assessment should not use all the resources, but should use a limited amount of resources in order to allow that most of resources will be used in order to apply the intervention. That means to physically ensure the safety of the learning facilities. So, in the disaster medicine, is the nurse that is trained for medical triage that makes this first rapid assessment, while in the Visus methodology, this rapid assessment is done by a surveyor that is specifically trained for technical triage. And after the rapid assessment, the nurse defines the situation priority using graphical indicators that in disaster medicine consist in a colored scale, white, green, yellow, red, and black situations. And in the Visus methodology, the evaluation is done in an automated way, starting from the information acquired by the surveyors and applying automatic algorithms that provide indicators concerning the situation. Also in this case, we have, for example, indicators concerning the situation, the green, red, and yellow, and the stars. We will see these indicators later on. These indicators allow to define the prioritization among the large number of schools, and then to define the treatment routing, to define the safety upgrading actions required in order to improve the safety of the schools. The goal of the Visus methodology is mainly the visual inspection of the existing schools in order to have a multi-hazard safety assessment. The outcomes of this assessment allow to identify the safety warnings and the intervention needs required to reduce or remove the identified safety warnings. All these outcomes are elements of information for decision-making support and allow the definition of the safety upgrading strategies for the assessed set of learning facilities. So, this allows to define who first, how, and why. As a consequence, the purpose of Visus is to provide the decision makers with the elements of information for the definition of multiple scenarios concerning the priorities of intervention according to criteria defined by decision makers. Then they can choose among the multiple strategies, considering, for example, their convenience. Visus outcomes concern also the upgrading actions required in order to upgrade the multi-hazard safety situation of the school. In particular, Visus considers the relocation of the schools, the retrofitting through self, light, moderate or heavy interventions, or the reconstruction of the schools. Therefore, the outcomes of the Visus methodology allow to identify the cases in which it will be more convenient to reconstruct the learning facilities or to retrofit it. The outcomes allow routing towards specialistic evaluation for detailed assessment and intervention design for warning removal. Finally, these outcomes allow a preliminary estimation of the final resources needs in order to upgrade the safety of each schools and of each learning facility. We have seen that the Visus methodology applies a triage for planning approach in order to obtain the information for defining safety, for allowing decision makers to define safety upgrading strategies. So Visus starts its evaluation with available data and adds some information acquired through visual inspection done by trained surveyors. The purpose of Visus is to perform a pragmatic assessment that provides the information required to characterize the safety weaknesses, the intervention needs, the financial resources required for this intervention, and elements that allows to assess the convenience of these interventions. All these outcomes are elements for decision-making support for multi-criteria definition of focused safety upgrading strategies. So, as using all these elements, decision makers can define multiple strategies for safety upgrading the schools in their territory, and then they can choose the best or the preferred strategy and define the action plans for safety upgrading. The important thing here is that it is necessary to save as much as possible the resources for the application, for the realization of the safety upgrading intervention. So it is necessary that the Visus methodology assesses how much is enough to know, but not more, in order to define what is opportune to do for the plan. So there is the need to find a balance between a poor assessment, a raw assessment, and a detailed but time-consuming and expensive assessment that provides much more information. So Visus aims to identify an assessment methodology that finds a right balance and defines how much is enough to know, but not more.